I am Ray, and here's exactly how I stopped my obsessive thoughts without needing to get cracked open like a coconut by a therapist. Not again. You see, a long time ago, in a land far away called California, I was struggling miserably every single day. I would wake up and immediately get flooded with like the worst possible dread you could ever imagine. I remember one time I was laying there, and it was nice and comfy. A little bit of peace, a little bit of joy. Sleeping nice in my bed. I wasn't fully awake. And to give you a little context, this was during my dark night of the soul. A lot of bad things going on. But there was just this glimpse of peace and joy. And then as my mind started to kick on, waking up, I just felt like this immediate flood of cortisol and dread. You see, the worst thing about it for me was feeling trapped in my negative thoughts all day. From the moment I woke up until the moment I went to bed. Just negative thoughts, obsessing over everything. And it sucks to be trapped in your own head because where are you going to go? Nowhere. And we get so close to the situation, it feels like we're never going to escape. Like we're going to be stuck this way forever. But it is not true. Remember, this too shall pass. But we need the right information to lead us to freedom. And it all begins with a strong desire to be free. To make life better. Because if we don't have this desire, well, we can just wallow in our suffering forever. We settle for just endless pain. Oh, we just get used to it. It's just the new normal, as they say. It is not. You must be ready for freedom. Seek and you will find. And this goes for any problem that you're experiencing. And it was this that led me to the moment that changed everything. My spiritual awakening experience. And that was the final nail to the coffin of my negative and obsessive thoughts. And I was able to become free. I sent the thoughts back to the void. And now they're not a problem. They don't even exist anymore for me. Now, after 7 years of struggling miserably, I took everything I learned and packaged it into a nice little box with a little bow on top. It's called Monster Mind Mastery, my latest program. Learn more down below. Now you see, the big problem is that when we're stuck dealing with negative or obsessive thoughts, they kind of take the forefront of our whole life. It's like the only thing we can focus on. Everything else gets pushed to the side. No matter how hard we just try to live our normal life, it's like it's always there, just poking at us. We're trying to ignore it. It's not there, but it is. It is there. And you see, one thing I realized is that energy is life. Energy is creation. Energy is power. And the mind is a tool that directs the flow of energy. As they say, where attention goes, energy flows. And think about this for a moment. Where does life flow? Where does your creative power go? What do you give your power to? The entire quality of the life we create for ourselves is determined exactly by the quality of the things we focus our attention on. So now you can see the problem. If you are hyper-focused on negative thoughts, you are screwed. Because by focusing on and wrestling with and running away from our negative thoughts, we're just feeding them. We're just making them worse. That is why it feels like we can't escape. We have given our power away, so we become powerless. Our thoughts have all the power. What I call the monster mind. The source of negative thoughts. We have given all of our power away to the monster mind. So we feel like a slave. And because we're perpetually giving our life energy to negative thoughts, our energy is being hemorrhaged. We're losing it. And think about it. Where life is not, death is. Like when the lights to a room are turned off, darkness is what remains. So, what happens? We fall into depression. Our whole life gets covered by this dark haze, cloud of negativity. And we continue to suffer more and more until we die. Because you cannot survive without the life force within you. So if you continue to lose it by focusing on negativity, the outcome is always the same. We dive deeper and deeper into hell until we die. But it doesn't have to be that way. You see, the wonderful thing is that obsessive thoughts, OCD, negative thoughts, they're all the same one thing. They're just a bad habit. Now, I get it. It's not as sexy as having a mental illness that we can claim and say, well, look at me. The good news is that we can undo any bad habit and build any good one. When we frame our negative thoughts in this way, we understand that we're not actually hopeless. We're just a little bit lost, which is understandable. Both feelings and thoughts are forms of energy. So what happens is that, well, we have a negative or obsessive thought for whatever reason. Then we react to it and feel some kind of way about it. Then what happens, that feeling feeds that thought. The thought gets stronger, it creates stronger feelings. The stronger feelings create more thoughts. You can see the feedback loop of death, obsessive. It's kind of why, songs get stuck in your head. Why? Because when you listen to the song, it makes you feel a certain way. Memory is stored in the body based on feeling. So when you feel either annoyed about the song or you like it, it's going to keep replaying in your mind. It doesn't matter if the feeling is negative or positive. Think about like a vinyl record. There's the song and there are the grooves. The song is the pattern or the thought, the information. But the grooves are the feelings. So what happens? You, for whatever reason, develop this tendency to focus on a certain kind of thought, a certain pattern. In the beginning, it probably wasn't a big deal. But what happens is that we feel negative about that pattern, that thought. And that's where the obsession begins. The bad habit. For instance, you might have a thought like, oh, is everybody looking at me? What's going on? Are you looking at me? And then you feel bad because you don't like that. And that feeling further reaffirms this kind of psychological drama. Now you're obsessed. Now you're looking at everybody's body language. What do you think of me? What do you think of me? Oh no, they looked a certain way. They must have had a bad thought about me. They must not like me. On and on and on and on. When in reality, it was just imaginary the whole time. It was just our own psychological drama. It wasn't real. We believed it to be real because we experienced it to be real. The feelings were real, the thoughts were real, but the whole thing was imaginary, if that makes sense. And that's one of the most difficult things about dealing with our thoughts. It's that they seem believable. They kind of make sense sometimes, or at least from our perspective. And the moment we entertain these thoughts, well, guess what? Now you've allowed them in, now they can fester. It is through our belief that we open up the door to negative thoughts, to obsessions, even to addictions and all other problems. As the spiritual teacher Muji once said, a thought has no power. You have all the power, my friend. But you give your power away to your thoughts through your identification and belief in the thoughts. And that's the thing. Normal people can have a crazy thought and just realize, oh, that's a stupid thought. It doesn't mean anything. And so it doesn't bother them. But some people are a little bit more open to the madness. And they begin entertaining these crazy thoughts. And then they become homeless, talking to themselves. Strange people. So, one of the most important things we can do is simply tell the monster mind, no, I'm not entertaining this garbage anymore. Because the only reason our thoughts have any power whatsoever is because we allow them to influence us. So all we have to do is take our power back, realize that we have the power, and stop feeding all this nonsense. Because the thing is, the monster mind, our obsessive thoughts, they cannot survive without your energy. The monster mind is like a parasite. It has no power of its own, so it has to steal your power. But the only way to steal your power is to manipulate and deceive you, because you wouldn't freely give your power away on purpose. So you do it on accident. The monster mind is also like a vampire. The only way it can be allowed into your life is if you give it permission. And you give it permission, like Muji said, through your belief and identification with the thoughts. And so what happens? So your thoughts are here. Thought, you. You're attached to your thoughts. Because we've been feeding the thoughts our energy for a long time, they have a bunch of juice, a bunch of energetic momentum that keeps us a slave to them. We're stuck. Let's call it the monster mind. So the monster mind can pull us all over the place. because it has a piece of us, our energy. It's the same thing with addictions. Obsessive thinking is just an addiction, a bad habit. We fed something for so long that we become powerless and it has power over us. All we have to do is first, you stop feeding the monster mind, and that's like half the battle, if not more. Because as you start taking your power back, you stop feeding the monster mind, the energy dissipates. Your negative thoughts begin to lose power. So what happens? It gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappears. And you become free. Congratulations. Simply by not feeding our thoughts, we win. But the second thing we can do is start to feed positive ones. Think about the suffering of dealing with negative thoughts like a big fire. It's really bad, it burns. But here we are, pouring gasoline on the fire and wondering why it sucks. Don't worry, I forgive you. First we stop feeding the fire, then we pour water on it. We master the monster mind and send it back to the void. Now the big issue, one of the main problems of this whole rigmarole, is a little something called fight or flight. Ever heard of it? Basically I have two main systems, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious is the mind. It's our center of gravity, or better put, it's our center of experience of who we believe we are, personal identity. And the unconscious is the intelligence of our body. Imagine you're in India, it's hot, it's blazing, it's humid, it's smelly, and you're riding atop a big elephant. Wow. And for a moment, you get a nice, cool breeze blowing through your hair and your face. The elephant takes a poop. Everyone's happy. But then, the elephant sees a cart full of bananas. Now you're done. There's nothing you can do. The elephant is steadfast toward getting its bananas. And you're just along for the ride, but maybe at least you can snag yourself a tasty banana, and then everything would be better. The point is, the unconscious is the elephant, and we are the ones who are riding the elephant. But we don't know how to ride the elephant. It just does what it wants. If we do not train the unconscious, then we will get pulled around our whole life by our instincts, by our feelings. And you can see this is why people fall to addictions, to self-sabotage. This is why we don't have any control over our obsessive thoughts. Because the unconscious is the automatic system. It takes over. Think about beating your heart or digesting your food. You don't want control over that. The unconscious is a divine intelligence that has been evolving for hundreds and hundreds of millions of years, if not billions. In fact, it is billions. So it's not going to let you do anything stupid that could threat its survival. The first primary instinct is survival. The second one is reproduction. These are the main functions of the unconscious. There's many more, but the point is, the body speaks the language of feelings. The conscious mind receives information in the form of patterns. So, through our evolutionary history, we have evolved through this kind of dynamic process of receiving information and feeling certain ways about it. So, when you see a tasty banana, we've been eating bananas and feeling good for millions of years. So you can look at it and intuitively, instinctively you know, I'm gonna eat that. Same thing if you run into a grizzly bear on accident. You don't need anything to tell you, I should probably run away. The body knows, the body remembers. But there's not only memory of the past billions of years of our genetic lineage, but there's also the specific patterns we experience in this life. So, what happens? Why we get stuck in these obsessive loops is that there is some kind of pattern. And I want you to begin thinking about what that is for you. It can be, something that's not that bad to something that's terrible and it's ruining your life. Everybody kind of struggles with this. So don't think you just gotta be super obsessive for this to help you. Let's take an easy example. Let's say you worry and obsess over money. You're always afraid. You never have enough. Things are not going well. You got no food in your cupboards. All that has happened is that you've had some negative experiences with money. So, you felt bad about it. And that feeling has stored memory into the body. The vinyl disc, it's taken the song, grooved it into your body. Not groovy. So every time you come into contact with that pattern again, it triggers a negative response. And to the degree in which the feeling was traumatic, meaning negative, determines how much you get stuck in fight or flight. But the problem is that we keep re-traumatizing ourselves, and the trauma gets worse and worse into fight or flight. And you see, the thing about fight or flight is that it channels all of our resources into the present moment for short-term survival, which means it destroys our immune system. It's hemorrhaging energy. And eventually, we become sick, both in mind and body. And the real issue is that the human body is not designed yet to function in modern society. We're no longer running away from grizzly bears in the forest. We're running away from grizzly bears in our mind. And guess what? We can never escape the grizzly bears in our mind. So every time we have a negative thought, it's like, ooh, a grizzly bear manifests before you. And of course you would get shocked into fight or flight. And that's the secret. The body doesn't know the difference between what is real in the world or what is real in your imagination. It's all real. I mean, if you think about the monster mind, it's like a big reptilian. Every time it rears its ugly head, it's like, ooh, get away from me. But if we want to be free, if we want real change, we have to change this. We have to tell that elephant, look, there's no threat here, we're all good, stop this nonsense. You're making my life worse. You're trying to help. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Smack that elephant on the butt. And in order to reprogram our unconscious mind, we have to speak the language of feelings. Whatever it is that is traumatized, that traumatized pattern, we have to start feeling differently about it. So, the pattern might be social relationships. You're always obsessing over what people might be thinking of you. You gotta start feeling differently about people. You obsess over money. You gotta start feeling differently about money. You hate yourself. You're unworthy. You gotta start feeling differently about yourself. Feeling is the secret. If you just realize this, take the time to focus on feeling differently. By changing the way you react to things, then the healing can begin. But if you continue to wallow in suffering, well then what are you gonna do? The problem isn't gonna go away. Because the problem is memory stored in the body. So we either have to change the song on that vinyl disc or swipe it clean. Those are our two options. Now, the thing that changed everything for me, going through my spiritual awakening, I was listening to the spiritual teacher Muji. One of his spiritual talks, and I don't even remember exactly what he said, but what happened was that in that moment, it's almost like my soul jumped out of my body, but it was more like my attention. Everything zoomed out, and it was like I was a foot in front of me, and I turned around, and I went back into myself. And for the first time, I saw who I really was. I recognized my true nature. Now, not everybody is going to understand this. That's okay. I encourage you to seek, and you shall find. And you see, as Muji said, the problem is identification. So what happens? We have a thought. We believe the thought, but why do we believe the thought? It's because of our identity. We believe the thought is relevant to us. And what this causes is for us to be attached to the thought. And like a little leech, well, now it can steal your blood, steal your life energy. But think about it. What happens if you hold the leech like a foot in front of your face? Doesn't matter how scary it looks, it cannot steal your energy. The same thing with our thoughts. A thought has no power if you are not attached to it. But the only reason we're attached is because of identity. And this is what I discovered. You see, identity is what creates thoughts. Imagine the ego or the mind like a magnetic bull. And that bull, it attracts all kinds of metal objects. And these metal objects are beliefs, stories, and little fragments of identity, personality traits. And this becomes like a powerhouse that just produces thoughts. If you assume that you're a good person, or that you try to live a righteous life, and then you start having some really negative thoughts, you're going to start questioning whether or not you're really a good person. Because there's a contradiction from your identity and your experience. Oh, why am I thinking this? I shouldn't be thinking this. I'm a good person. I'm a good person, right? Right? And then you start questioning the nature of your identity. Oh, maybe I'm not a good person. Maybe I'm actually bad. And if you continue to feed the thoughts and even begin identifying with them, well, now you're full-blown evil. That is how evil people are created. Serial killers and the likes, for no other reason than they identify with the monster mind. They believe their negative thoughts into existence. You cannot hold a thought in your mind for so long without eventually acting on it. Think about being resentful. Somebody did you wrong. You begin ruminating on it. You start feeling bad, which makes you more angry, more resentful, until eventually that resentment causes you to act. So our identity leads to thoughts, our thoughts lead to emotions, and our emotions influence our actions. And then, of course, actions create consequences. You see, Jim Carrey once talked about depression. That your depression is your body saying, screw you, I'm not playing this character anymore. That you need to be depressed because depression is deep rest from this character you've been trying to play. When I was going through my dark night of the soul, this was the root of the problem. This was causing all the misery, all the suffering. If we try to just manage our thoughts, well, it's a good start, but we're not getting to the root of the problem. Obsessive thoughts, negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, they are all just surface level symptoms of a deeper problem. And what my spiritual awakening made me realize is that we are not our thoughts. Think about it practically. You can observe your thoughts, correct? Or can you not? If you can observe your thoughts, that means that you are by default separate from them. Because in order to observe something, you need an object to observe and a subject to observe that object. The subject always has to be you. And you see what Muji teaches and what all spiritual teachers lead you back to is that there are only two fundamental things in existence. There are an infinite array of changing experiences upon the backdrop of an unchanging awareness. When you are awake, you are there. When you are dreaming, you are there. And when you're in deep sleep, you are there. All changing experiences. But what is the common factor? You. You are always there no matter what. But we identify with our changing experiences. We look at our body and we say, yeah, I am my body. I am this human being. I am this man or this woman. This is who I am. And we believe it with 100% certainty. Or we look at our personality, our mind. It's like, yeah, this is who I am. Yeah. Thoughts are changing experiences. Personality is changing experiences. The mind is a changing experience. We suffer only because we have falsely placed our identity on that which is not really us. Meaning we're living in an illusion. Have you ever watched The Matrix or The Truman Show? The moment I realized that I was not my thoughts, it immediately cut the cord from them. The only reason I was feeding them because I believed they were relevant to me. And they were not. They were relevant to the person I believed that I was. The moment I recognized that I was the awareness behind the experiences, I became non-attached. And non-attachment is freedom. There is already an aspect of you that is your true nature, which is already free. Awareness does not struggle, does it? Awareness does not suffer. Awareness does not have obsessive thoughts. Only the person deals with these things, and the person is a changing experience. This is enlightenment. This is spiritual awakening. Realizing the true nature of what we are. Not a body, not a mind, not a thought. The unchanging awareness. We all believe that we are the voice inside our head. But if that were the case, well then who is the one listening? I am Ray, and if you're looking for deeper transformation, to finally become free from your negative thoughts, you can learn more about my latest program down below. Much peace and many blessings, and remember,